Oh, you still can't hear it. 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 Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give folks just a couple of minutes to join us for our encore presentation of Savvy Wealth Secrets. We are broadcasting, and I can't wait to get started. So it's right at 12:58. we have quite a few people registered for today. So I'm excited for all of you who registered. We're also streaming live on LinkedIn and on YouTube and on Facebook, you know, the amazing wonders, right, of technology. So come on in here. Good to see you. Look who's here. Don's joining us. You're right on time. And I'm going to make sure that I'm on time. I know many of you are at work, and we love to conduct these sessions really at a time when we know you may not be able to join us because you may have other things going on. But what I want you to know is that's okay, that the information that we're going to share with you today hopefully will be of value. I certainly believe that it will. But just know we're excited to have you. So I'm going to give folks just a few more minutes. I'll go right into my introduction, share a little bit about myself, and as folks come in, you can just jump in as you're coming in. So welcome, everyone. Let's see how many of you are on LinkedIn Live right now. I'm going to check that out for just a moment. Who is joining us? Let's go to our events section. Yes. Awesome. So I am excited about this. We were doing some testing. So part of the video, we were having some, technical difficulties, if you will, with the audio. But you know what? Doesn't matter. We just keep it moving. So we are right at 1 o'clock, and I'm going to get started. So no matter where you are, whether you're watching us online, whether you're joining me here in the Zoom room, wherever, I just am excited to have you here. So let me just share my screen with all of you, and we're going to get right into Savvy Year-End Wealth Secrets. So why do you think I picked this topic? If you want to comment it in the comment in LinkedIn section as well. And then we've got one person in here with me so far in the Zoom room. But why is this topic so important at this time of year? Well, I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. This year, after all the tax planning that I did with accountants and all the different strategies that we employed, I still ended up with a fairly significant tax bill. Well, we ended up with a fairly significant tax bill. And when I thought about it, now is the time for you to make those strategies before the year ends, not waiting until April the 15th. And then you have to amend and you have to do all of these different things, all the things, right, to try to bring your tax bill down. So this workshop is really about sharing with you what are some of the strategies that the wealthy use to minimize their taxes. Hey, if they can do it, you can do it too. And so I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about the strategies. Hello, Aurelia, it's good to see you. Good to see you, one of our WealthyU community members. I see Margaret Lohing is here as well. I'm going to, in the chat, I just want to ask you all, what did you hope to learn? What did you hope to learn today at this presentation? And that typically is my first question, because of course, I have a formal presentation, but I know that there might be something that you want me to cover. Now, let me just preface this by saying I am not an accountant or a tax professional by any means, but what I am going to be sharing with you are the things that you can do so that when April 15th comes, you know that you've done all that you can do to pay Uncle Sam less. And the other thing I want to encourage you to do is to stay till the end, because if you stay till the end, of course, we love to give gifts and we love to pay it forward. So those of you who stick with me are going to get a nice gift. So let me just first begin by sharing with all of you who this webinar is for. So who is this webinar for? Let's just start. For the first generation high earner, for perhaps this is you. Perhaps you see, maybe you have high educational attainment. Did you get your bachelor's? Some of you may have an MD, some of you might have an MBA. How many of you in the chat, just let me know, have a bachelor's degree? Just put yes in the chat. If you've got a bachelor's, or just put bachelor's in the chat, okay? How many of you have a master's? How many of you have a master's? How many of you have and you can also post that in the LinkedIn Live area, right? How many of you even went past a master's and maybe you have a PhD? Perhaps you have a JD. And for first generation high earners, especially if you didn't get a trust fund and you didn't have anybody just pay that bill for you, typically what happens is you have a lot of student loan debt. And depending upon how high your educational attainment is, it could be significant. You may even have a negative net worth because of it. And your retirement savings may be low relative to what you're really earning, because so much of your money is going to pay off that debt. If you can relate to that in the chat, let me know if you can relate to that. Okay, first generation high earner. So who else is this webinar for? You could be the overachiever, right? Are you the overachiever? Did you check out all the boxes, college, career, management track? You too have high educational attainment. Perhaps you've even invested in some real estate and have a 401k. But guess what comes along with high earnings? Anybody want to guess? Higher taxes, right? I can always remember my accountant telling me, Deb, if you pay more taxes, that's mean you're paying more money. But that was the accountant talking. And so a little later, I'm going to share with you what I learned was that that's not how the wealthy approach year-end tax strategies. They're doing everything they can to make sure that they pay the least in taxes, right? And perhaps you're like me. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and you left a corporate career with cushy benefits to start your own business. And perhaps you're even thinking, now, as a business owner, and certainly that was something that I had to come to terms with. I had to create my own 401k or my own retirement plan. Or perhaps even your old employer plan is sitting at your prior employer and you have no clue what to do next. But the question for you becomes, can you bet on the future growth of your company, or should you diversify your income and your assets? So if I described you in the chat, put me. I want to know. Yeah. Aurelia says she's got a master's. Don has a BA. For those of you who just came in the room, I'd love for you to just put, what was your highest educational attainment? You could be a late bloomer and perhaps you didn't take on a high earning job until later after you raised the kids. So maybe you've been out of the workforce, and as a result of that, you don't have adequate retirement savings. And perhaps you're wondering, can I actually make up for lost time? And you're asking the question, are there investment strategies that you can do now so that you have enough? Well, here's the good news. All of you who are listening to me, whether you're online, whether you're watching me on YouTube or in LinkedIn, the good news is what all of you need to understand is that many of you would already be wealthy. But in fact, the knowledge of how to build wealth, how to use tax advantage strategies has been hidden from you. And I don't know about you, but I was given this roadmap of, if you make more money, you pay taxes. And, probably the only tax break that my parents shared with me, even though it wasn't until later that they actually owned a home, was that you could write off your mortgage interest. So the question I have for you is, for those of you who own a home, is that enough? Is just writing off your mortgage interest enough? No, right? And so the question I also have for you, what is the biggest bill that you have every year? Anybody want to guess? What is your biggest bill? You think it's your mortgage? How many of you think it's your mortgage? Anybody? What is your largest bill? What is your largest outlay? In the chat, or you can put it in the comments. What is your largest outlay? Well, guess what? I'm going to tell you what it is. It's taxes, right? And so the question really becomes, and I mean, I think oftentimes we don't really, particularly if we're working for an employer and they're withholding taxes out of our check, it's not really something that, how many of you actually think about or even look at the line on your check stub, how much taxes you pay every week? Here's what I want you to know is that a lot of you don't even think about it. You know, all you are thinking about is, listen, I just don't want to have to write to the IRS. I want to withhold as much as I can so I don't pay taxes. Well, what if I told you that's not what how the wealthy approach things, right? The wealthy approach things from, what do I have to do to pay less in taxes? And what I want to tell you, you have to do that before year end. And what the other thing I want to share with you is you got the wrong blueprint. And I'm going to share with you what I mean by that in just a moment. And how I know is because I am you. I had the wrong blueprint, right? And so on the left side is a picture of my mother, and she's 18 years old at the time. And on the right side is my high school graduation, and I'm 17 years old at the time. And my mother, I'm sure like your parents, told you exactly what you should do. They told you to get the career, get a good job, you know, try to make it to that 6 figures management track, and that's how you're financially successful. Well, that's what I thought too. And, you know, my mother did everything that she could to make that true. She sent me to a private high school, all the things that she could do to really prepare me to succeed in the workplace. And then as her and my father, me as the youngest of 5, as her and my father got ready to retire, they separated after 30 years of marriage. And it was while my first year in college. And as a result of that, I said, well, mother, you did everything you can. I got to take it from here. And so what do you think I did? I went and I looked for an opportunity, and that opportunity very early on in my career is where I learned these secrets that I'm sharing with you, and where I learned that I had the wrong blueprint. And I got to tell you, that experience was eye-opening, because what I learned was that what my parents had given me was the earner mindset. And if you guys can relate to this, like, how many of you were told earn as much as you can, and that was going to lead you to financial success? If that's the blueprint you were given in the check track, the property, sorry, taxes. That's right, John. Don says it haunts me, right? And so the point that I want to make is we were taught to earn. But how many of you would agree that it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep? Agree or disagree with me in the chat. Agree or disagree with me. How many of you agree that it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep? Okay. And so what I learned when I in my career in the investment industry was that the wealthy have an owner mindset, right? Where I was taught to earn as much as I can. The wealthy were taught to take those earnings and put them into assets so that they could become owners, so that those assets could pay them as opposed to them working for it. All right, so I'm going to double click on that. That is the major concept that I want all of you to understand, that the earner pays more. Okay. That's what I finally understood, was that the person that earns W-2 income pays the highest taxes, right? But the person that invests their earnings into assets, whether it be real estate, whether it be stocks that pay dividends, what the wealthy understand is that some assets get preferential treatment. And so as a result of that, that's what you have to focus on. Agree or disagree with me, okay? What you have to focus on is not just earning an income. What you have to focus on is turning your income into wealth. And so I'll share with you where I learned that in my career. I started out at Merrill Lynch, and then I went on to be recruited by Fidelity and had a very fast trajectory. And I didn't understand why I had never been exposed to any of these concepts. But the reason that I hadn't been exposed to them is probably the reason you haven't either, is that you didn't come from wealth. So I got a question for all of you who are listening to me right now. When you turned 18, did you receive a trust fund? Did your parents take you into your private banker? Did they sit you down and did they show you the assets that they inherited and that eventually you're going to inherit? That happened to anyone in the chat? Yes or no? Okay. What I want you to understand is that's how the wealthy get wealthy. And as I began to work with high net worth clients, I saw that they had a different blueprint. And what that blueprint allowed them to do was to have their money grow, to grow their assets and do it in a tax efficient way. And here's what I want you to know is that even though this information may have been hidden from you can take advantage. There are things that you can do today to use the same strategies that the ultra wealthy use to minimize your taxes. All right. And so it is during my career with Fidelity, working with high net worth clients, that I learned the secrets. And those are actually the concepts that I share in my book, The Wealth Secrets. Why did the wealthy continue to get wealthier? So, it's been quite the journey from Fidelity Investments. So I get all this insight. And the first thing I want to do is I want to tell the world, right? So I start out on my little journey and I leave Fidelity Investments and I feel like, hey, I didn't learn this and nobody else did either. And so I'm going to go out here and I'm going to share those secrets. And so while at Fidelity, they sponsored my first radio show. And in fact, Kathy Hughes, owner of WOL, now TV1, gave me my start when she only had one little radio station. Well, actually, yeah, she was just opening her second one in Baltimore. And so I thought that, hey, I could go on the radio, I could share all of this information. And what's interesting is after I left Fidelity, they no longer wanted to sponsor my show, of course. And then I went on and I wrote my first book, Confident Investing. In that book, I threw everything but the kitchen sink in that book, just about the technical aspects of investing. But then what I began to understand that was not enough. And so one day I got a phone call from Cheryl Martin, former anchor at what was BET News. And she said, Bishop Jakes wanted me to go on tour, on God's Leading Ladies tour. And so I said, surely this is how I can get this information out, right? So I'm there. I've just written my book, Confident Investing. I speak to over 100,000 women across the country in coliseums in North Carolina and Philadelphia. But guess what? The wealth gap just kept getting wider. So then I began to understand that it's not just the knowledge, right? So how many of you so I wrote my book, A Persevere Your Own. I wrote my book, Confident Investing. How many of you have a lot of books about investing in wealth? In the chat, put yes if you do. If you've got Glenda Bridgeforth, Girl, Get Your Money Straight, Girl, Make Your Money Grow. If you've got Susie Orman, Young, Fabulous, and Broke, The Ultimate Makeover. If you've got Dave Ramsey, can I go on and on? I know where all those books are, right? They're where all books go. All books go to the book graveyard. Do you know where the book graveyard is? The book graveyard is the Goodwill or any, and I'm going to talk about the importance of that just a little bit later. And so then I wrote the book, A Purse of Your Own. My husband and I produced a PBS special. I start these purse groups all over the country. Over 1,400 start, and then guess what? They fizzle out. Why? Why do you think they fizzled out, y'all? They fizzled out because what I didn't understand then is that you needed to really have a strong leader, right? And that those groups needed accountability and support. It wasn't enough to just read a book, because guess what? If reading a book would make you wealthy, all of you would be wealthy already. Agree or disagree with me in the chat, right? Like if it was just a book. And that's when so I'm on CNN. I'm doing this Power of the Purse campaign. And I got to tell you guys, I'm frustrated. I am frustrated. But it's just when you get to the point of frustration that the light bulb appears. And it is then that I started what is our current company, WealthyU, and we created a curriculum. First, I started with private coaching one-on-one, because one of the things that has become clear is that in order to achieve any type of significant wealth, if you're a first-generation investor, you need accountability and support. And you need someone to give you the right blueprint. And that's why you're here today. And so, in fact, after launching WealthyU and working with thousands of women, we now have the Legacy Wealth Blueprint that is now responsible for helping thousands of women build their first investment portfolio, their first seven-figure investment portfolio, and some of them are running for 8. And it's because of the concept that I'm sharing with you today. If you look at the blueprint, you can see the transformation is to transform, take these steps from earner to owner. So I'm going right back to the concept that I shared with you earlier, because that's what the wealthy know. That it's not about earning more income. It is about turning your income into wealth. But in order for you to do that, you've got to learn how to keep more of it. Is this making sense in the chat or on LinkedIn? If this is making sense, put yes in the chat. Okay, so who's ready for me to go deeper into the concepts? Thanks, John. Don says yes. Who's ready for me to go deeper into the concepts, right? And so I want to share with you, I shared high earners and the fact that you've been given the wrong blueprint. And this was Belinda. When I met Belinda before she joined WealthyU, she had delegated all her investments to an investment advisor without understanding the recommendations. And the problem, and I would say this to advisors, when your clients don't understand what you do, what do you think they're going to do as soon as the market goes south? They're going to be fearful and they're not going to stay the course. Can anybody relate to that? And so here Belinda was 20 years into her career, and she hadn't accumulated the retirement savings that the amount of money she had earned relative to what her investments were. And that's because she was earning a low rate of return, and she was in the highest income bracket and had a high tax burden, right? And here's what happens since joining WealthyU. She's learned how to analyze and research her portfolio. She's increased her personal rate of return. She's established a brokerage account. She's established a backdoor IRA and all of the things that I'm going to share with you just a little bit later about the strategies all of you need to be employing and creating an estate plan. And I want to double click on an estate plan. For many of you, for those of you who don't, like, you can build wealth in a generation and you can lose it in the very next. And far too many estates, I don't know about you, but I had to deal with my parents and their estate, and there were so many things that weren't taken care of. But here's the good news. I got this text from Belinda, and she learned that she was one of those with a 7-figure retirement account, right? So she went from not having enough in retirement, paying high taxes, but then when she started to understand how the wealth secrets and apply the wealth secrets, and in fact, Belinda is one of those stories in my latest book, Wealth Secrets, that shared, it really shows, and that's what I'm most excited about, real people who didn't come from wealth and are able to apply the concepts that I had learned in my career to their own, to create their own legacy wealth. And so that's the blueprint that, if you see it, right, here's the blueprint. She had to realize that she couldn't just be an earner. She had a financial awakening, and then she had to learn how to accelerate her financial growth and expand into not just her 401k or mutual funds, but also begin to practice those high net worth strategies that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. So at WealthyU, that's what we do. We teach women high net worth strategies so that they can become the catalyst of intergenerational wealth. So the point I'm making is the reason these concepts are so important for all of you in here to internalize, it's not just for you, okay? I want you to get this. It's so that you can now have the knowledge, so that now you can pass this information to your family, and then you can build intergenerational wealth. So it's not just enough to earn it. You've got to turn it into income, and then you've got to protect and preserve it. And you do that when you have knowledge. And that is, in my latest book, what I finally realized, right? So I could tell you all the technical information, but if I don't give you a blueprint on how to apply it to your own specific situation, then it's all for naught, right? So it's not enough to read a book. You got to apply what you're learning. Is this making sense to you? If it's making sense in the chat, put yes, right? If this is making sense to you in the chat, put yes. Okay. And here's the other thing I want to say for all of you is that how many of you feel like you should know this already? You know, that you have been highly educated. I saw all the BAs, the MPAs. Don't you think it's interesting that the most important knowledge that you need to learn is not taught through your formal education? So I'm just going to ask you all a question. In any of your formal education, did any of it cover how the financial markets work, how to turn your income into wealth, how to analyze and research your investments in your 401k, how to analyze, optimize, and maximize? That's all. No. And so I would submit to you that the reason that didn't happen is because this knowledge is not learned through your formal education. It's not. It's inherited. But listen, once you get it, and that's the point, then you're able to pay it forward. And so in my book, I cover 7 wealth secrets, but today, as it relates to tax-advantaged investing and savvy tax secrets, I want to talk about the concept of understanding this basic concept, and that the difference between earner and an owner. And you see, what I had been given was the earner mindset. My parents prepared me, and they wanted me to be totally prepared. And can you relate to that? Did your parents tell you, get a great education so that you can get a great job and you can earn money? Was that the blueprint that you were given? In the chat, if that's you, put yes, right? If your parents said career, college, career, management track, 6-figure income, that's the golden ring. That's the American dream. If that, you were given the earner mindset. Okay. And so because the earner mindset is different from the owner mindset, that's what the wealthy know that we don't. And so I'm just going to give you an example of that. So here are 4 different, so there are 2 sides to the coin, right? There's the earner side and there's the owner side. And the earner has a job that earns an income, right? And collects a W-2, earns W-2 income. And that income is taxed at the highest rate. Even solopreneurs, and I was a solopreneur for a long time, but I just made a job. I want you guys to get this because I know you hear a lot of people talking about, oh, side hustle, this sort of thing. But as a solopreneur, you still own the job and the responsibility. In fact, instead of working 8 hours, you're probably working double that. And on this side, that's where you're taxed the highest. Is this making sense to you guys? But as an owner creates and owns a system that creates cash flow. And that's why it's important to scale as a business owner. But along with that, you can use the tax code to pay less in taxes. Or you can also be an owner by being an investor. And that's what I learned through my career in the investment industry, is that you can still be an earner, but you can turn those earnings and turn them into assets and become an owner. And you don't have to create the system. You now invest in the company that made the system. And guess what? When that company, when it either appreciates in value and you buy and sell it as a capital gain, or you get a dividend, guess what? It's taxed at a lower rate. And that's what the wealthy know. So if you were to look at what the wealthy do versus what most of us do, and if you look at, here are the biggest tax breaks, what are they? They're tax cuts on dividend and capital gains. When you sell or buy any asset, it's taxed at a lower rate. Defined contribution plans. So those are 401ks, IRAs, defined contribution plans. Those are the biggest tax breaks, right? However, most of us are only taking advantage of it. And what's really interesting is the only tax advantages that we take advantage of are the mortgage interest rates for the most part, if you're on the earner side. And so the point that I want to make is you've got to learn how to go from here to there, turn your income into assets. But let me just preface this. I'm not by any means telling you that you should, like you hear all these people start a company, an LLC, and all your problems. No, you can still be an earner and take advantage of the opportunity that an owner has. Okay, so typically, just looking at this chart, if you look at the earner, here's all you can deduct: mortgage interest, property taxes, and charitable donation. But as an owner or an investor, you get to deduct all you get to deduct this, and typically your money is taxed prior to any expenses. Whereas an owner, you get to deduct all of these things, right, before you pay taxes on them. So how do you become that? You could be an earner and you could be an owner at the same time. And the interesting thing is UBS just came out with a study. And one of the things it showed was that women who had the highest net worth, typically what they had is they were earning W-2 income, but they actually were an owner of a business as well. And they were taking advantage of these other things, right? So they were an earner, but they took advantage of all of this. Is this making sense to you guys? Let me just stop for a minute. Is this making sense to you? In the chat, let me know. Right? So the only concept that I want you to understand is you've got to make sure that you're taking advantage. You position yourself, even if you are an earner, to take advantages some of the tax strategies that the wealthy use. And you can do that whether you're earning just regardless of where you are on the spectrum, you just have to learn how to take some of these earnings and move them over to this side. Okay, and so I want to give you an example in the book Wealth Secrets. This is one of our members. Returned to school to obtain an MBA, several $100,000 in student loan debt, not being fully compensated. But now, and her net worth did not reflect her lifetime earnings. But since joining WealthyU, she's purchased, created real estate investment properties, invested in tax advantaged investments. And see, the other thing is, real estate is one of the few things that gives you tax advantage, but you don't have to do it just as an own property right outright. You can take advantage of taxes and real estate through limited partnerships and be a part owner instead of a full owner. Here's Dia. She only invested in her 401k, thought investing was too complicated. Low investment returns, no stock investments outside of her 401k. And her story's in the book as well. And now, since joining WealthyU, she's established and increased participation in her employee stock purchase programs, purchased real estate investments, established a brokerage account, and built a stock portfolio. Stock portfolios, again, invest in companies that pay dividends. Those dividends are taxed at a lower rate, and you can also just use them to reinvest in more shares and grow your portfolio. So in terms of savvy year-end tax strategies, if you want to take a screenshot of this, this is what I want to make sure you do before year-end. That you take the maximum amount of contributions that you can put in your 401k or your 401k Roth. How many of you are in the chat, or if you're watching on another platform, are investing through your the full amount or your contributions in your 401k, so you can deduct as much as you can? So the only thing I'm going to say is sometimes it can be challenging, but I'm going to challenge all of you to simply increase your deductions by 10%, each year, so that you can get to that maximum. The other thing you want to make sure that you do in the chat, how many of you have an SHA, which is a health savings account, a flexible spending account, or a defined benefit plan? Meaning a defined benefit plan, in some cases, your company may even have a plan that you can invest in after taxes, making sure that you take advantage of that. The other opportunity that you have, specifically if you want to save for retirement so that you have tax-free income at retirement, is pretty much if you make under 200K as a W-2 earner, you still can make a contribution to an IRA. You may not be able to deduct it, but another strategy that high net worth and folks do is they do a backdoor IRA. So they put the funds in the IRA, and then they convert it to a Roth IRA. And the benefit to a Roth IRA is when you take the money out, there are no taxes due on it. And the next step is in the chat. Let me know, any of you work full-time for a corporation and also have are paid by 1099 income or a side hustle, if you will? Well, one of the things that you can do is you can establish, okay, you got an HSA, make sure you contribute to that. No problem, Joyce. We'll make sure you stayed we make sure you get that gift we're giving folks too. I know that many of you are at work. And then make sure that so now's the deal. Here's what I want to tell you. It's December. It's 1st of December. Now is your opportunity to make sure you go through your household and you start gifting or charitable gifting to the Goodwill. You get all of your charitable donations out. And the other thing I want to encourage you to do is if you do give household goods or clothing or furnishing, that you take pictures of it so that you can keep track of those deductions and also put a value toward them. And in fact, there are a lot of apps right now that will help you do that in terms of valuing what you're actually giving away. So in the case that you need to prove that what you gave away had that value, you have that on hand. And the other strategy, particular for high net worth individuals, if you have invested in stock, or it could be a mutual fund and it is at a loss, one of the things you can do is you can offset, you can take the loss, and then if you have any gains, you can offset the loss with the gain and pay lower taxes. So the point that I wanted to make, and the reason that I love doing this at year end, is this is when you need to be taking advantage. Okay, so now I'm going to get to the numbers, right? So in 2022, the maximum IRA contribution you can make is $6,500, right? So if you're over 50, it's $1,000. I mean, that's 2023, excuse me, this is 2022. So as you can see, there are all kinds of ways that you can play catch up in your retirement plan, particularly if you're, so for example, in the catch up provision for 401ks is now going up to $7,500. The maximum contribution that you can put in is $22,500 into a 401k or a 403b. But if you put those two together, that's almost $30,000. And for those of you who are own a company, are there any entrepreneurs in the house? What many entrepreneurs don't know is as you get older, one of the other things that you can do is you can contribute to a defined have your company contribute to a defined contribution plan. Those are the same pensions that, you know, folks that work for a state or large corporations used to receive. But that's another way that you can begin to use tax advantage strategies so that you can accelerate your financial growth. And I always love to leave with this chart, because what I want you to know is it's never too late. Even at age 50, you can save up to 7 figures. Now, that blue line is saying you're putting almost the maximum amount, right? So in this case, I have the 2020 numbers on there. So in this case, it was $26,000, but now it's up to 30, right? So if you made that contribution in 20 years, you could get to $1.3 million. Or let's just say you put in you just put in the $20,000, right? Then you could still get to $1 million in 20 years. Let's say you had an SEP IRA and you're self-employed. Then you'd still get to $500,000. Here's what I want to tell all of you. The goal is to start. And as I shared with you, that all of you who attended and stayed on will go online to make sure those of you who were watching us while we were streaming, we're going to give you a copy of my most recent book, Wealth Secrets. We'll email you a copy. But of course, we need your email. So if you didn't register, make sure you register for this event so that we have your contact information. And so finally, you know, the other gift that I wanted to give to you is give you access to our transformational wealth blueprint and show you how to apply some of these concepts that are shared in the book Wealth Secrets. So one of the things we want you to do is, if you have a camera, just take a picture of that QR code, or in the chat, I'm going to put the link And you can schedule a wealth ignition session. And that wealth ignition session is really designed to give you a sense of, are you off track? Are you on track? What are the levers? And here's all the things that this is all I want to tell all of you. It's different for everyone. Some of you may need to put more in your 401k. Some of you may need to, if you've got 1099 income, really think about establishing an SEP IRA. Some of you need to play retirement a catch up. Let me just ask the question, feel like, you need to have more towards retirement. What are the strategies that you can do? And so if you sign up for this session, in the session, what we share with you is based on your situation. We even have a calculator where we plug in some numbers and give you a sense of, are you off track, on track, and what are the things that you need to do, more importantly, to get on track. And all you have to do is you could take a picture of that code, or I'm going to put the bit.ly link in the chat as well that you can use, and it'll take you to a page where you can schedule a session if you so desire. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. So great, we've got just about 15 minutes. The question I love to ask, because this is very, very important, and it's something that I ask our folks in WealthyU all the time. And out of all the concepts that I went over today, what is the one thing that you could do right now that could make the most impact? Right? So it's not all things, right? It's the one thing that if you focused on, you feel like could get you further faster. You can raise your hand if you want to open your mic, you can do that as well. Uh-oh. I just see my link is wrong too.
Hey, Deborah.
Hey, Dawn.
This has been great. One of the things that we just did, and I say we because although I have my own business, my insurance, my the health insurance, all of our savings goes through my husband's company. So we maximized everywhere we could contributions, and definitely with our HSA.
That's excellent. And the other thing I want to say is with HSA, like a lot of people don't realize it, right? But you can take that money before, people used to think it was like the flexible spending account where if you don't lose it, you'll use it, you'll lose it. When in fact, that is a great way to invest in that account. I don't know which investment company is managing your program, but you can invest in that account. That money can grow. And now if you don't use it, like at 65, that money you'll be able to take out tax-free. So that's another benefit. And like now I think you can put together, starting next year for a family, it's about $7,500. So what I want you to know is it's the little things, right, that can make a huge difference. But you go, Dom, that's great. And yeah, I mean, I want to make sure you guys maximize all the things that you can. Any more questions in the chat? Okay, so Tasha said, that's right, estate planning. I really want to double click on this for a minute. And guess what, you guys? I just met someone. And guess what her business is? Her business is a mobile estate planner, right? So she's an attorney, and she's actually, I know many of you are in the DMV, But because, this is such a stressful topic. I don't know about you, but when we did our estate plan and then we start talking to our kids, nobody wants to talk about death. But listen, if you don't have a will minimum, right? And then a trust can really allow you to be more specific about how your assets are are, what do I want to say, given and who they're given to. And the other thing I don't think people realize either is how many families are impacted when you don't do your estate planning, right? I know, Don, I'm gonna get you the right link in just a second, right? Like so many families have uh you know what do I want to say, have fallen out because of a lack of estate planning, or the person leaving the money, leaving the estate not being clear. And so that's why it's important. And here's the other thing. The most important thing you need to know about estate planning is that if you don't have a will and if you haven't taken care of this, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be going to attorneys, and those attorneys, every time you go to an attorney and have to get something done, guess what? Cha-ching, cha-ching. And so what happens, I just put the right link in there. It should be Wealth Ignition. If you click on that, guys, let me know if you go. Yep, that's it. The right link is in the chat just to schedule some time. But listen, I know that the holidays are on. I know, like me, all of you got a lot of things going on. But I just wanted to do this session specifically before year end so that you make sure you've done all that you need to do before the year end, and not look at April the 15th and say, man, I could have did this. I should have made a contribution to this. So if this was a value, put value in the chat or put value in the LinkedIn comments. And with that, again, I look forward to sending. Tasha said, oh, Lord, I try to talk to my kids about it, and I have 2 teen daughters, and they'll start crying. I know. And I do think, as teens that might be a little young, Tasha, but I do think if you go and get that paperwork in order, and then, as they go off to college, you can start having those conversations and really help them to understand that the reason that you're creating an estate plan is so that in the event that something does happen, they're taken care of. And so with that, we got done a little earlier, but thanks so much, guys, and look for a copy of my ebook being sent to your email. Thanks so much. You guys have a great day.